Hello, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning. We've turned off your audio devices for now. You can unmute if you have questions or raise your hands or click on the Q&A. Jalen will be reviewing those and letting me know if we have any questions. So feel free to ask. I'm going to give everyone just a minute here to log in and then we'll get started. Also, Tori was going to do this presentation, but there was an issue that came up and she's not available. So I'm taking over. I apologize. I've used this application a ton. Still working on the presentation part of it. So hopefully everything goes well. All right, we'll go ahead and get started here. So today, as part of our mass migration or Maximo asset management, we're going to talk about the inventory counts in the manage application. So in the past, we kind of had some workarounds for inventory counts. IBM has come up with a new application for this, and it helps us to better manage the process, better get reporting on where we're at with the process, and get some better results at the end and get some more participation from the plants. So if we take a look at the progression of the inventory counts, this is something that started with the Maximo Application Suite. So it started in version 8, which was about a year ago. Version 9, we came out with this year. 9.1 was about 2 or 3 months ago. They've made little improvements on each iteration. So if you're part of the NACE Maximo team and you have it hosted by us, you guys are using the version 9.1. Ben, did you have a question? All right, if you can type it in the chat, Jalen will let me know. What you do with the count books is you set up your count books in Manage or the desktop version of Maximo Application Suite. And then you're going to be able to complete those counts either in the mobile app. Oh, you can't hear me. Can anyone else hear me? Yes. Okay. Huh. Let me try a different speaker here. Is that any better? Okay. Perfect. I'll keep going then, and hopefully if Ben can get back in and get that working. Okay, so in inventory counts, we begin in the desktop version. We can complete it either in the mobile app or you can complete it in the desktop version. It's really interchangeable for both. One of the reasons why we like using the mobile version of this is it allows you to do real-time counts. And that gives you the opportunity to have anybody go out in the field and do it. So as far as licensing goes, to be able to manage the count books, add them to count books and stuff, that's going to take someone who's has access to that group, the inventory group. For somebody who's just going in and doing your cycle counts, they don't have to have access to that group. They can go in and have access to work orders and still be able to count inventory. So it doesn't count against them as one of their application groups. This allows you to determine your counts. In the count books, you have a couple of different item selection options. So here's ICG as one of them. And then you can perform your counts offline. So if you're using the mobile application, you can sync up your mobile application, go into the plant where you don't have any connection, do all your counts, and then when you come back and you sync it up with Maximo again, it'll sync all of those counts into Maximo. So it is an online offline solution if you're using the app, and you can reconcile that with the current balances and do all of that within the count books rather than having to do 2 steps. So what we're going to talk about is creating a count book. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of get out of this slide and get into Maximo. And today we're working on the Max demo site. If you're interested in looking at the Max demo site, you can shoot us an email at cmms@nace.com. We can give you a email or a login, and you can go in there and kind of see what's available. I'm going to type it here in the chat. But this is our demo site. It's blue because it's demo. Most of you guys have black for your production, but you can change this navigation bar as needed. So we kind of have a standard we set. Here in Maximo, you're going to see on the left-hand side, there's a group called inventory, and that's this group here. And there's going to be a number of applications in here. We're not going to hit all of them. We are going to hit a few of them. So when you start working on count books, the first thing you want to do is you want to set up in the count books application, which is a new application, you want to set up how you want to count, or you want to decide how you want to count. So if we look at the count books application, you'll notice in here that you count by storeroom. So you can't count multiple storerooms. If you're counting multiple storerooms, you'll have to set up one for the first storeroom, a second one for the second storeroom. And that's because you could have the same item number in both storerooms, and it makes it very confusing. So we're going to set this up by storeroom. And you can see we can set it up quarterly, you can set this up monthly, you can set it up annually. And then down here, we're going to set up this selection type. So there's a number of selection types that come out of the box. You can do everything all at once if you just do a 1-year cycle count. You can do it by bin number. If you have a certain bin number that you want to count each time, you can put that bin number in here and select which bin number you want. There's a counting frequency button, and that's where you'll see the 365 or 30 days or however many days, and that tells you how often you want it to be counted. And then there's this inventory counting group, and this is really kind of where we're focused as the NACE Maximo team on setting this up so that we can do a counting group every month, a counting group every quarter, every week, however frequently you want to set that up. And then we have items, only rotating, so you can do all items, only rotating items, or tools, just tools. We don't have in here set up things like if you want just capitalized spares, or if you only want anything that's not capitalized, or those sorts of things. So if you wanted a more specific listing like that, or safety, critical, or whatever, you would have to collect those ones and then assign them a counting group. And then that counting group would be used for all of them. So let's start with kind of where we put things into this count book so we can go in and count them. And that's going to be on the inventory application. So we're not going to start with anything at the item master level. Item master is just dealing with items. Cycle counts start at the inventory level. So on inventory, you'll come into the inventory application here. And if you click on any of these inventory items, we're going to see the inventory application that you're used to. And there's a couple of critical areas in here that we're going to take a look at. So the first here is your ABC analysis here. You'll see there's an ABC type and there's a count frequency. Typically, we set the count frequency to 365, which means we have to count everything once a year. That's the NACE standard, is everything counted once a year. Now, we don't necessarily care how you do that. If you count that monthly or quarterly or annually, however you need to do to get it to that place, it's up to you to do it that way. But this you would set as however frequently we want to count it. And you could set this as different frequencies based on which time frame or which group I want to include it in, or you could just set this as 365. The value that you put in here drives when this is next going to need to be counted. So if you scroll down all the way down to where it says inventory balances here, you'll notice there's a physical count date. And this physical count date is the date that it was last counted. So this was last counted on 5/7/94. And then underneath that in here with the new applications, you should see a field that says next count date. Now it's not showing in here, and a lot of our sites we've had to custom add it. So let me just pull one up here. I know we have one in MPG1. If you don't have it showing up in here, let us know and we can add that to your list so that you can see those now. Or if you're not with NACE, let us know and we can show you how to add that. So what you're going to see when we go to inventory and inventory, oh, all records. You change this filter, I bet. Huh. I don't know why it's not showing. It should. Anyway, with a new list, you should see a field here that says next count date. And the next count date is something that you can manually add. However, whatever you have here in your count frequency, it's going to automate what happens with that next count date. So if our count date down here is 5/7 and we count this today, then our next count date is going to automatically populate that it's due in 30 days because of we have 30 set up here. So it's going to set it as next due on 10/30. If we have 365, it's going to set it next due on 9/30/27. So this is where you're going to first have your controls, ABC type and count frequency. And then here on the left-hand side, this is what the count group is. So out of the box, Maximo, it doesn't come with any count groups. We have to define what we're going to want there and then put that into the list in the domains application to tell us how we want to count it. So you can see there's a monthly, quarterly, annually, and then C1, C2, C3. Typically, if you're doing a monthly count, you would see January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, through all the months. And I've noticed a lot of plants are starting to do monthly through November, and then in December we count everything. So you could do that this way as well. You could do December with just all, and then you would have set up in here January, February, March, April, and then you could split based on those counts. And the question that I often get is, how do I set up these count groups? Because it's not something that's easy to figure out. It's not something that's intuitive necessarily. And what's going to happen is I'm going to have thousands of records now that I have to populate this count group. So we can create a import export script, or we can load this for you initially. And what I do is I take the entire list of inventory and I list it out by bin numbers here. So what I would do, there's a report that we typically have in Maximo. It's called inventory cycle counts with zeros. If you don't have it in your environment, let us know. We can load it in if you're an ACE Maximo client. If you're not, let us know. We can help you get that. But that inventory balances for cycle counts with zeros will show you everything that you have in inventory, even if it has a zero value. So as long as there's something here in inventory balances, it's going to show up on your report. And then you sort that report by bin number and by item number and by storeroom. So what we typically do is we count how many inventory items that we have. So if we had 2,000 inventory items, or let's just say 12,000 to make this easy, right? If we're counting every single month, then we want to do 1,000 every month, and then we can get all 12,000 done by the end of the year. So what I would do with that list is I would take my values, I would like group it by 12,000s, and I would make January the first 12,000, February the second 12,000, and I would make sure that those bin numbers fit together in that count group. So you're only counting D9s in January, D10s in February, and that way, if there's a natural break, like these ones kind of bleed over into the next month, but they really should all be together, you can make those changes when you load in the data. And when you get any new item, When you look at other items that are in that same bin or similar bins, you can easily tell which count group it goes into and put it in there when you add the new inventory item. So that's going to be the easiest way for you to manage that if you want to use these count groups. We can, like I said, initially load it, and then you can just manage it as you go when you add new items. So you'll need to manually add a count group. So if we add it to C1, we could add it in here and click save. You can change that count group anytime you want. It's not going to change your next due date. So if my count group is C1, but my cycle count frequency is every 4 years, it's not going to tell me that I need to count this again for another 4 years, even though it's in that group to be counted. And we'll look at this in the mobile app in a little bit so you can kind of see what that means to you. There's a tolerance, a plus and a minus count. So I could be this many over my current balance, or I could be this many under my current balance, and it would accept those numbers. If you are over that tolerance, when you put that number in and you click submit, then Maximo is going to say, hey, you can't do that. You're over your tolerance. So you need to recount that item and make sure you're really entering the correct item. Where I've seen this be effective is in places where you're counting kits or packages or something like that, where you might have 25 to a box, but in inventory it's stored as a box. And so when someone goes and does a count, they go, oh, I have 50 of these because I have 2 boxes, right? So they'll enter 50, when in reality, we issue this out as a box, so it should be quantity of 2. So that's where we see these tolerances are effective. It is a lot of work to put those in. So typically we don't put those in unless it's something that you actually need to keep track of when those tolerances or when those variances happen. All right, so that's all we need to do here in the inventory application. And this is really the setup for what we're going to do with accounts. So then we're going to come over here to the left, and you're going to notice the inventory count books here. When we create a count book, it's the same as you do everywhere else. So you're going to click plus up here to the left. Oh, I don't have a default insert site. Hold on. I do. Interesting. Take it back to Bedford. Okay, so I've got my count books in here. I'm going to click plus to add a new record. And you'll notice there's a couple of statuses in here. There's waiting approved, approved, and in progress. So it always starts in a waiting approved status. And that means I'm just entering it in. I haven't even started this yet. I'm just kind of collecting the data. I'm going to put in my count book. I can put in a description here if I want to. You're not required to, but you might want to make this January 2025, right? A count book is for a specific count at a specific time and a specific date. A count book's not set up to recur regularly. That's the reason that we have the groups, so that we can select group A or group January, and then we can do one January 25, January 26, January 27. So you're going to want to identify in here exactly when you're doing it. So this is January 2025. I'm going to pick my storeroom. This one has multiple storerooms. Like I said, you can only pick one. So if we pick the central storeroom, the reason is not required, and Maximo actually doesn't populate anything in this field out of the box, but if this is something that's important to you, whether it's an annual count or it's a one-time count or counting it for an audit, you can put those reasons in here and identify exactly why you're doing this count. Again, not required, but it's an option for you if that's important. And then a memo is just notes to myself or to whoever's doing the count. Like this needs to be done by whatever date, or do half of this every week so we get it all done by the end of the month, whatever you want to say in here. It's going to start waiting approved. My name is going to be on here if I created it. Tori created this one, so that's why her name's in there. And then I can add attachments here if I want to. If I have a spreadsheet or something, I can attach that here. These GL accounts will populate off of your storeroom, but this is the GL accounts that we're going to use if there are variances. So if I have more in stock than I expected it to be, it would go to my credit account. If I have less in stock than I need it to be, it would go to my debit account. So it would charge to and against your inventory. For some places, there's a shrinkage account that covers all of that. For some places, that just goes to the inventory account as a gain or loss. And if you're keeping your inventory account static, then those gains and losses need to go to whatever GL account you're going to write those off on. Over here on the left, I'm going to select what type of item I'm going to be including. So this could be by bin. I could be using it by count frequency, counting group, a specific item numbers, if I only want rotating, spares, or tools. So these are all the options that I have. In this case, we had count frequency, but I'm just going to show you a little bit what this looks like. So if I pick all, you can see it shows I have 163 items in this actual storeroom. This is not how many items I have in Item Master or even how many items I have in the storeroom total. This is the number of items that I have in that storeroom that have a inventory balances record. So someone has gone in at one point and said, hey, I have something in here and it goes to this bin. You could have multiple bins for one item. You could have items that don't have a bin associated at all. The ones that have no bin won't be associated, but if you have it in multiple bins, those will show up here. You can see counted shows in here how many matched. So where the balance that you entered matched the current balance, it'll show here. Reconciled is how many I've gone in and reconciled after the fact, and then they'll show your accuracy down here. And if I picked all in selection criteria down here, it says all. There's no selection here, just all. I don't get to pick any of these other things. I just get everything that's in that list. I can also pick a bin. So if I pick a bin number selection, it's going to show bin in here, and I can say how I'm going to select this bin. So where this selection bin is now available, and I can type in a bin number 1B, 2 or whatever it is. And then I can count everything that's in that bin. I would probably change this to 2025 bin whatever. Once I hit save, it'll populate the lines in the count book lines. If I select in here count frequency, this is going to use the count frequency and it'll show me the count date. So if that count frequency is set to 365 or it's set to 30 or whatever, then it'll say the next due date for this is whatever date, and I'm only counting by anything that's due on a specific date. So if I say anything that's due today, I could pull this and it would pull anything that's in inventory that shows as next due date less than or equal to today. So anything that needs to be counted is going to show up. The next one is the inventory counting group. So this is the groups that you've put in, and you would just select which group it is you want to count, and it's going to populate that for you. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you're using the counting group, what's going to happen is if you don't have a counting group assigned to somebody, it is not going to show up in this list ever. So if you're using counting groups, at the end of the year, I would pull a list of everything in inventory that doesn't have a counting group, or I would create a query in inventory to say, hey, what doesn't have a counting group? So I can make sure that I'm counting everything that needs to be counted. And it's very easy to do that. I'll show you that right after this, how to do that query. Item allows you to put in a specific item number or multiple item numbers in here. So you can select the value, then you would just create a new row, your next item, select the value. So you could select as many of these as you wanted to. It's a little more difficult to select the items specifically, but if you do select it this way, you can always duplicate this the next year. So you get the same item numbers in your list for next year. And then rotating is only items that are rotating spares. You'll see there's no selection criteria for this. It only selects items where rotating is checked. And the last one is tools. So it will only include tools that are in the list. So I'm going to change this back to all, and then hit save. It's going to take me a minute to save, and the reason for that is it's starting to collect all of the records that it needs to build out your list. So it's saved the list. I'm selecting all. If I come here, it shows me I have 165 items selected, and I can go to count book lines, and now I see a list of every single item that I selected with their serial number, if it's rotating, if there's an asset associated with it, physical count, tool. So this is ready for me to say, okay, I'm going to approve this list and I'm going to count it. As long as it's in awaiting approved status, it's not going to show up anywhere. So for me to be able to start counting it, I need to change the status, and it's not going to let me change the status unless I have items selected. So now I have items selected. I'm just going to change status here to approved. And that is going to prepare the list for me to go ahead and do the cycle counts. You'll notice it doesn't look any different in here, but it is in an approved status. And then once someone goes in to count it, they can put in their name and the count date and time. So Alan, and let's say she counted it on the 29th. That lets you know who counted it and how many they counted. And once we've done that, we can count these in one of two applications. We can count them here, or we can count them on the mobile app. So if you're going to count them here, what you're going to want to do is, as a user, you're going to come in here to this list, and you are going to start entering your counts in this physical count. So I'm going to say counted 1, and then on this day I counted 3, and then this day I counted 4. You'll notice this accuracy thing is 5.1300. It's telling me how accurate I am compared to the current balance. It's not going to show me the current balance because it doesn't want me to put in the current balance and just say, we're good. Put in the number. The other thing it does is it keeps track of my name that I counted it and what date I counted it. And this is important because Maximo doesn't require you to close your inventory out while you're doing cycle counts. What it does is it keeps track of any transactions that have occurred between the time that you counted and the date that you reconcile. So if I counted today at 427 and I received an item at 527 and I reconciled at 627, it would take into account that receipt or that issuance of an item. So you want to make sure before you do your count that all your transactions are done, and then all the transactions are done that occurred in between so that your balances are correct. So you just go through here and you would enter in those values for the items that you put in, and you're going to click save once you're done. So that's what a technician would do. They'd either go into this application or the mobile app. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to flip over to the mobile app. Did you guys have any questions about this process before we flip? We'll come back over here. Okay. So let me flip over to the mobile app here. And this is, I'm just using a Samsung tablet. I'm using the Maximo application. If you're unsure how to get in there, what you need to install, and you're using NACE Maximo, when you go to the start page, sign out this because I think you should see on your start page a screen that shows, and it's not on this one, of course. I think it's on this, so let me just go. It should give you a URL. Here it is. So mass demo, here's where you can find the application. If you scan the QR code, it should take you there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to put in your information to log in is going to be what you see. I don't want to log in as that. Find. When you log in, you should see the URL, and then it's going to be whatever that prime is. So for us, it's prod or massdev.home dot your name. So this will be massdemo.nacemaximo.com. So you're going to basically take the whatever you use to get into Maximo now, and you're just adding home there instead of manage. So once I get into the application here, there's an inventory counting application that's available to everybody. I can open up this counting and I see two options. So one is ad hoc. Ad hoc shows items that need to be counted, and I can just start counting these. I don't necessarily have to be inside a count books application where a specific number are counted. I can count these ad hoc whenever I want to. So I can scan the barcode by clicking on the little scan icon. It's going to show there's a barcode and I can scan it, which I don't have one right now. Or I can go through the list here and select an item and put it in that way. But you can see here, these should be sorted by bin. You can sort that by clicking on the filter icon and filter it, or you can sort it here by clicking on the sort. So that's the up and down bar here, and you can sort it by different things. So we want to sort this by bin first. Come on. Well, okay, so let's do it this way. We're going to show by bin first, and then let's add the due date next. Just doesn't want to work for me today. And then I'm going to click OK. And you notice the up and down. So this is numeric, ascending, descending. And so you can see these are sorted by bin number. So if I start A35, it'll show me my current balance in here. I can add however many I want. If it's 3, let's say, we'll make this 6. You can enter this by clicking plus and minus. You can also enter by typing it in. And then once you're done entering however many you've entered, on the top right hand side, you're going to see that blue bar. So in mobile, that blue on the top right always means an action of some kind. So we're going to go ahead and save it up there. It doesn't tell me in here whether or not that was a good balance or whether anything has to happen. And in this case, it doesn't push him down to the end of the list. But you'll notice here, my next physical count due date has been updated to 9:30 at 9:32. So if I'm sorting this list by count date first and then by bin number, what I'll see is as I count, these are going to fall to the bottom of the list. So I'll always have values in here, but they'll have a value and the counted value here, and this physical count date will be updated as soon as I put in a value. So if I put in 72, I'm going to hit save, and I can go through these and populate as many of these as I want to. You'll see here as well, there's a counted tab. So if I switch tabs on the top from in progress to counted, I can see everything that's already been counted in this list. And this is used in the field to type in those values for you. So if you use this application, you can see the current balance. If you use the other application, Maximo, it doesn't show you the current balance. Once I've entered in all of these values, then I can go in as a manager or as a owner of this record. See if I can get into mass demo. Oh, look at that. I don't think that's the right password. Sorry, guys. Like I said, I was not completely prepared for this. Um, although I've used it quite a bit. I just need to get the password. And here we go. Okay. All right, here we go. Sorry about that. I'm going to go back to inventory. I'm going to go back to my cycle counts, count books. Go back to my one that I was working on. It's in progress. And if I go here to count book lines, I can see what was counted. You can see this on any, you can see counted, matched, reconciled, accuracy. So this one I have 0% accuracy. Here I only had 11. So it'll show you here 14, 3 of them were counted, 1 matched, 1 was reconciled. So you can kind of see where your accuracy is here. And your adjustments aren't going to show up until we actually do the count. So if I go to count book lines here, and I'm going to put in some counts. You can do this as a whole for everything, or you can do this just for individual units. So I'm going to, you'll notice if it matches, the little checkbox will show. These don't match, so that's why there's no checkbox on these. Whoops. So what I can do is I can select just certain ones to reconcile. So let's just pick these 3 that I just counted. And over here on the left, I can reconcile. And what that's going to do, it's going to change the current balance to match what I have, create adjustments for the difference between what was in the account or what was in that as far as cost and what the new cost is. That'll show up on your end of the month reporting. And it will complete that record. I can unreconcile. You'll notice everything here that's reconciled is checked. Unreconcile would allow you to unreconcile everything that's in there. So instead of having to go to that one thing and reconcile or unreconcile, this is an easier way to do it. So I'm going to reconcile everything. And then once it's all reconciled, then I can go to my count book and I can change my status now. It's not going to let me change it because not everything's been counted. So let's just throw some numbers in here. And like I said, I'm throwing numbers in. Oh, see, this one's over the limit. So there was a limit on this last item. So I'm going to save. And let's go to the last 14. I'm really bad at guessing here. Okay, so I've got everything in. And pretty bad. I can reconcile everything by clicking reconcile. And then when I come over here to the list and refresh, it should show me what my accuracy is. And it did not. Why did you not show me my accuracy? I don't know why it didn't show me my accuracy, but you can see where it matches, where it doesn't. All of those things will show up for you in the counts. And then you can close this out once you're done. You can also take this and duplicate. So if I have one that's working, I can go and duplicate the count book and use it for the next time, as well as, setting up those count group criteria there for you. So we don't have any specific reports for account books at this point. It's something we're considering maybe doing in the future, depending on what we need. You should have a number of reports available to you in the inventory application. And I'm just going to go in here because I'm pretty sure we've got them all in here. So there should be essentially 4 reports that you're going to run. So the first one is called, just open inventory. Make this so you can see it here. So there's a cycle count annual. This is a list of all of the inventory items that have a quantity greater than 0. So this will only show you items that you actually have a balance in. There's one with zeros that shows all inventory, whether or not there's a balance. If there's a quantity in that bin, it's going to show up here. So this is basically just a listing of inventory that you can see what is available to count. So I'm just going to preview this, show you what this looks like. And you can take this list and give it to an external vendor if someone else is counting your counts, and they can put those new counts in. If you're using this for an external vendor, what I would do is take this, make sure they put in the date and time that it was counted, or at least the date. And then I would have somebody from your team populate this in the count books application. It's a lot easier than what we did before with inventory. If you do the inventory and you do the reconciliation or you do the physical counts, you can't see what was already entered, where with the new count books application, you can see those things. So have them fill this out, populate these values into your Maximo count books application, and then reconcile it from there. I never recommend a download of these values into Maximo. And there's a couple of reasons for this. The first reason is you have inventory items that go in multiple storerooms potentially. So when you're downloading a list, nobody's checking that data for sameness, I would say. I don't know if that's the right way to put that. But when you're manually entering these, and I look and I'm familiar with these parts and I see something and it makes absolutely no sense, then I can go, wait a minute, is there something wrong with my sheet? Is there something wrong with the way this was sorted, or something wrong with the way this was entered? And let's fix that now. So if I don't do that and I just automatically load these up every time, I'm not going to see those things that I would see if I looked at the data individually. And I understand there's a lot of records that you're pushing through, and it'd be way easier to push it through automatically, and I completely agree with that. However, you are sacrificing quality for speed. And it just depends on what's more important to you. Is it more important to you to just get numbers in the books and be done? Or is it more important for you to make sure that this is done accurately and correctly? If your focus is on accuracy, I would manually put these values in through the count books application. It's a little bit of pain, but it's a lot less pain than it used to be. If you just care about getting it done, you can hand it over to some, the Maximo team, or you can do it yourself through an import and do it that way. But I will tell you, I have never had a single load go through absolutely correctly when it was done automatically. There's always been issues that have been found later. So just be cautious if you're doing it that way, that everything is exactly filtered and sorted right, that when it gets loaded, that you check everything before it gets reconciled. So you make sure you have an accurate listing. The other application, or the other report that we use in here, is called the discrepancies. So what the discrepancy report does is it takes a look at everything that you've counted, and it takes a look at your physical counts and anything that's occurred since that date. And it's going to give you a report that says there might be some issues here. There are some of these things that you probably want to go back and recount, because you're going to have to do an adjustment for these. So you'll have a listing in here of all of those transactions that need adjustments. And then at the bottom has a verified by and date. The purpose of this report is you would do your counts, you would print this report out, you would send it to whoever's going out in the field. If you were using an external vendor, they would take this list, put in the new counts, resubmit the new counts in Maximo, and then you would run the reconciliation. So it allows you to catch a little bit of those errors. If you're using the inventory cycle counts and this number doesn't look right, at any point in time, I can change that count. I can change it to 7. I went back, I recounted it, I changed it to 7, and you'll notice it updates my count date right there. The other report you're going to see is the reconciliation report. So the same as you would normally, you're going to see those reconciliation transactions, anything that occurred that moved things around. And then I think that's all the reports. Let me just see. So these ones that you're going to see, the monthly, I'm sorry, the cycle count, some of you guys have like a monthly cycle count. Those are going to go out essentially. So those aren't going to work any longer. We're going to have to modify those if you do want to continue using those reports. But your reporting that comes out of count books should replace those. So I should be able to get this list. And if I want it to have in my hand, I can just click the download button here. It's going to save it as an Excel file, and I can use that to give to my vendor, whoever I need to do that count for me. So this is kind of the replacement for now for that report. If that report is still important, you need it to run out every month, let us know. We'll work with you on getting everything switched to the new count books option and getting that report recreated in a way that makes sense for you. So here's what you would see when I extract this, and I can provide this to my vendor, whoever I need. So I think that's all I had on count books. We have a few minutes left if anybody has any questions or need some strategy help in how they would implement this at their sites. Yeah, looks like Ben's typing something. Feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question. The other thing as well is if you do have questions about this or you go back and you try and use it, there is not a written process, Ben. I will put something together for you guys so you can do this on your own. I just got this recently, so I will work on getting that, and everybody who signed up, attended the meeting, we'll send you guys a written process so you can do this on your own. Yep. The other thing as well, if you guys have questions during your regular monthly meetings with our team, feel free to bring it up. Most of our team is aware of how this works or is learning how it works. Again, it's kind of a newer process for us as well. So we're kind of learning it as we go a little bit, but feel free to reach out. And then if you know someone else who's using it or you have question on other people who are using it, there's not too many right now. I think just a few are actually using it in their system, but I'm sure they'd be willing to kind of share some of the pain points and things that they've learned along the way on getting this done on their site. So I think the biggest thing to start, if you want to do this, is start figuring out how you want to do those counts, whether it's monthly, by bin number, or if we want to do it quarterly, or maybe we do one storeroom every quarter, however you want to do that. Start figuring that process out. And then it's a lot easier to take your existing inventory and split it out the way that it needs to be split out. Give you guys another minute here for any questions. All right. Well, seeing no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and close out this session. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Next month, we're going to do Maximo Scheduler. Jack Harrison is going to present that one. So if you're interested in using it at all, it's now included as part of the Maximo Application Suite at no charge. So it's just considered one of your application groups, which I believe is planning. But Jack will go over all of that on the next call. So you should be seeing that in the next few days, and we look forward to seeing you then. All right, thanks everybody.